Mr. Williams sent a flyer to Huey with the performance location of Wife and Lucci. The text message read, "Handle that tonight, slat." Then Huey responded, "Slat."
Thug texted him a location of Lucci and said, "Handle that tonight, slat."
He has a 2-year-old little daughter that was born in July of 2022. He has never met or seen his daughter in person until today, as she's here in this courtroom.
What?
It's frankly remarkable.
I want to apologize to my kids, my family.
Lil Rod and Huey took plea deals today in the YSL RICO trial. There's unconfirmed rumors that Thug is close to a plea deal. So 3 out of 6 defendants have took plea deals. Huey just got the most remarkable plea deal of all time. And Yak and Shannon have both denied plea deals. So it's all up to Thug now if he's going to take one. Which, me personally, I don't see him taking nothing. The state definitely wants him in there. He's King Slime. They're going to want him in there for fucking 10, 20 years, bro. And I don't see Thug accepting that. Just my personal opinion. Hit subscribe. Here we go. It sounds like it's going to be Lil Rod taking a plea right here.
Good afternoon. So I understand we have a few pleas to be tendered.
A few?
This is why part of testimony you're going to truth, whole truth, and nothing but truth.
Yes, sir.
Is your name and your first and last name?
Rodalius Ryan, Rodalius Ryan, Ryan.
And Mr. Ryan, are you the same person referred to as Rodalius Ryan on indictment number 22SC 183572?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you at this time under the influence of any alcohol, drugs, or medicine?
No, ma'am.
How old are you?
Currently 20 years old.
And how far did you go in school?
12th grade.
Are you able to read, write, and understand the English language?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you are charged in this indictment with count 1, conspiracy to violate the Racketeer, Influence, and Corrupt Organization Act, which carries a sentence of 5 to 20 years?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you have the right to plead either guilty or not guilty to these charges?
Yes, ma'am.
Look at his little smirk right here.
Plead not guilty or remain silent, you may receive a jury trial.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you had an opportunity to go over this plea of guilty and waiver rights form with your attorney?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That's my signature.
That's your signature?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you had enough time to speak with your attorney, Ms. Leah Abbasi, about all of the facts and circumstances known to you regarding charges in this indictment?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you waive any defects, if any, with respect to the indictment?
No, ma'am. Could you repeat that for me?
Sure. Do you waive any and all defects in the indictment?
Yes.
He said no, ma'am. Remember, he's already convicted and in prison for life, but it's on appeal, so.
Which means that the state will recommend to the court a sentence of 10 years to serve, commuted to the time you have served in this case. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you understand that this sentence should run concurrently with the sentence that you are already serving for 19 SC 168236? Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that the court does not have to accept this recommendation?
Yes, ma'am.
And the court can sentence you to the maximum on this charge?
I understand.
Do you understand that there may be other adverse or unfavorable consequences as a result of this guilty plea conviction, just as there would be from a conviction following a trial? For example, your guilty plea may affect your right to vote, your right to hold public office, your right to serve on a jury, your right to obtain a passport, your right to receive, possess, and transport a firearm, or the ability to obtain employment. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that by pleading guilty to a felony, if you use, receive, possess, or transport a firearm, or use a firearm in a crime, you will be guilty of a felony, which may carry a sentence of 1 to 15 years?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you waive any and all defenses, including any mental health offenses, by entering a plea of guilty?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand if you went to trial, you had the right to a trial by jury, the right to see, hear, and confront witnesses called to testify against you, and the right to testify to remain silent and not incriminate yourself?
Yes, ma'am.
I hope you guys know this is an L for the state. All of this, all these pleas. They had these guys locked up for 2 years, saying they were all these big bad people, and they want them in prison for life and shit. And now they realize they fucked up the trial, and they're offering pleas. That's what's happening here.
The right to remain silent and not incriminate yourself?
Yes.
The right to confront witnesses against you?
Yes.
The right to assist of counsel hired by you, or to court-appointed counsel if you cannot afford an attorney at the trial of your case?
Yes.
The right to the presumption of innocence?
Yes.
The right to testify on your own behalf and to present other evidence?
Yes, ma'am.
The right to promise you anything to get you to enter a guilty plea?
No, ma'am.
With respect to indictment 22 SC 183572, how do you plead to count 1, conspiracy to violate the Racketeer, Influence, and Corrupt Organizations Act?
Guilty.
Is this guilty plea freely and voluntarily given with a full knowledge of the charge against you?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you may have only a limited right to appeal this guilty plea conviction?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, if this case were to proceed and continue with trial, Your Honor, evidence has shown and will further show that Mr. Ryan conspired with others to participate in the Young Slime Life gang, had a racketeering activity, and multiple defendants and unindicted co-conspirators have committed overt acts to further this conspiracy, including drug sales, aggravated assault, and murder, also including social media posts asserting the violent nature and dominance of Young Slime Life, aka YSL. Your Honor, the court has been present for evidence regarding the February 23rd, 2019 homicide of Mr. Jamari Holmes, in which Mr. Ryan and YSL co-conspirator, Damon Blaylock, lured both Jamari Holmes, Bernard Mitchell, and Rodney Hooten to an apartment at 50 Mount Zion Road, which is in the Cleveland Avenue area. The evidence came out that during the course of that incident, that Mr. Ryan, along with Mr. Blaylock, emerged from the apartment complex, shooting at the vehicle, shooting Mr. Holmes in the head. After this incident, a few hours later, Mr. Ryan is seen posting on social media, on a public social media post, saying that YSL makes the news. Right, there has been other social media posts in which Mr. Ryan has promoted or enhanced the reputation of YSL. Your Honor, the state intended to show further evidence that once Mr. Ryan was convicted of the homicide of Mr. Holmes while in prison, he continued to enhance the reputation, power, and territory of YSL. Specifically, when YSL co-conspirator and co-defendant Christian Eppinger was given a bond for shooting at an Atlanta police officer, Mr. Ryan, while on a contraband phone in prison, posted on his social media accounts, he flashed the YSL sign and stated, "We're coming to get you. YSL shit, free my N-word brisk, F the DA, the gangway, we catching bonds on this shit." Your Honor, this is the evidence that the state would have intended to show if we would continue with trial. Given the current status, Your Honor, we made an offer to Mr. Ryan for this commuted to time served offer to my concurrent with his current conviction, Your Honor, and I can approach with the documents.
You may. All right, Ms. Abbasi, is there anything that the defense wants to add to the record?
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, I have had the honor really of representing Mr. Ryan along with Ms. D. Williams, who I'm quite disappointed she could not be here today for...
Damn, yeah, where's Miss D. Williams? I'm actually disappointed she's not there. Remember, Miss D. Williams was, like, barely making money on this long-ass trial where she had to be there every day.
This trial has been exhausting for everybody, and that certainly includes Mr. Ryan, who has been going through the court system since he was 15 years old. We categorically and adamantly deny that YSL is the criminal, dangerous street gang which it's been made out to be through this trial. We're actually quite happy with the record which was established during the presentation of the state's evidence of the alleged murder of Mr. Jamari Holmes. This plea today, Mr. Ryan is making a decision which is going to be the best for his future, what future he has, because he's already serving a life sentence. Were he to be convicted and sentenced to additional time, he would remain in custody. As I stated, we think the record established will strongly support his appeal, and hopefully when his conviction is overturned, we don't want him sitting in prison for something else. Certainly not for actions he took when he was younger and actions he took which are largely a product of how he grew up. As I stated, Your Honor, Mr. Ryan was 15 years old at the time of the Jamari Holmes murder. You've seen through the text messages, he was out at all different hours, doing all different things, which I don't think anyone would want their 15-year-old to be out doing. And so that is where he was, and so he did adopt the people who were around him, the people who could support him, the people in his neighborhood who grouped themselves, calling themselves YSL. Mr. Ryan at no point was trying to advance a criminal street gang and their interests. He was trying to protect himself, being a young person, largely on his own, and this is where he's ended up. I would like to say that there's been some sort of rehabilitative function here since he was sentenced to prison. It doesn't appear that that has happened. As you've heard, some of his additional cases are within the prison system. It would be wonderful if some of the money spent on a case like this could possibly be invested in the future of people like Mr. Ryan, who go into custody at such a young age, and who really then are not given the resources to make the changes that they really would like to make to have a productive future. With all of that said, I think Mr. Ryan has grown up a lot during this trial. He doesn't want to sit through this anymore. He doesn't want to ever be back in a courtroom ever again, Your Honor. He's heard about all sorts of incidents, which the 2015 crime, he was 11 years old. Mr. Ryan's most sincere wish is to move on with his life, to put this behind him, and we thank the court for the opportunity to resolve the case in this way and not drag it out any further than it has been.
All the 2015 crimes we've been hearing about, he was 11.
He just would like to thank the court, Judge.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Ryan, I just want to make sure that you understand that this is ultimately, the decision is yours to make, not your attorneys, and I appreciate that both Ms. Abbasi and Ms. D. Williams have been available in giving you legal advice and guidance, but it's ultimately your decision. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and do you, in fact, want to plead guilty?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and you've had enough time to think about it and to discuss it with your attorneys?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And Ms. Abbasi, have you and or Mr. Williams talked to Mr. Ryan about the benefits and drawbacks of all of his different options?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. I find that there is a factual basis for the guilty plea to count one, the conspiracy to violate the RICO Act. Difference of opinion may be with regard to what YSL is or isn't, and what Mr. Ryan may or may not have intended. There is a factual basis that exists from the record, as it already is in this case, to support the necessary elements of the conspiracy to violate the RICO Act. Have heard many of the alleged overt acts and the conspiracy evidence advance the enterprise through a pattern of racketeering activity and to control personal property and money, and I find that the factual basis for that exists, and I am going to accept Mr. Ryan's guilty plea. I find it to be freely, knowingly, intelligently, and voluntarily entered with an understanding of the consequences of this plea, and I'm going to sentence in accord with the recommendation that both of the state and the defense have worked hard to negotiate here, which is a sentence of 10 years commuted to time served and to be run concurrently with the sentence that Mr. Ryan is currently serving. And certainly within the court's consideration is the knowledge that Mr. Ryan is at this time serving a life sentence for the murder of Mr. Holmes. And while I understand that that is on appeal right now, those are the facts as they exist right now. So that is the sentence of this court. Mr. Ryan, at 20 years old, you have most of your life ahead of you, and I don't know what it is going to hold with regard to your appeal or anything after that, but whether it is more years in custody or whether at some point in time you see the light of day to the outside world again, which is very likely considering your age, as long as you behave yourself while you're incarcerated and do not continue to either commit crimes in prison or violate any of the prison rules. If you can be on the straight and narrow, then somebody your age, after serving some amount of time, is probably going to be considered favorably for parole. And you just have to keep that in mind, that you need to be looking out for sort of the long run and not playing the short game, but playing the long game so that you have a future in front of you still.
So I'm pretty sure Lil Rod led a prison uprising.
Lil Rod needs counseling. He needs therapy and maybe drugs, like the legal kind. And I say that with love in my heart. He has a psych problem that needs to be addressed. It's indicative of what's going on in that jail. He essentially led a prison uprising. Really? Lil Rod. Like when you read the police, the sheriff's report, was coordinating people, got locks popped, like went after a guy with others. It was a thing. It was a Spartacus thing. And that's how that jail is operating right now.
So maybe the judge knows about that situation.
So that is your sentence, and I wish you luck, and I wish that with further maturity, much like Ms. Abbasi has said that you have already exhibited throughout the course of this trial, that you were able to make better decisions and steer your life in a better direction.
Half of you aren't subscribed. Stick around, hit subscribe. I appreciate the support. I mean, 10 years commuted to time service. Pretty incredible for his situation. I can't believe this is happening. This is such a failure for the state. It's not even funny. They failed so bad because the state is offering these favorable pleas because they know they fucked up.
Mr. Matthews, are y'all ready?
Wow. And here comes Huey. So it looks like everyone in suit just taking deals.
Yes. Am I Quavis Huey?
First look at Thug here. See, he's in regular clothes. Shannon's in a suit. What's going on with that? I thought Shannon denied his plea deal. Yak's in regular clothes. Remember, Doug Weinstein put out a message. They ain't accepting no guilty plea. They're fighting for his life. Now, this motherfucker, Huey, was on demon time, if y'all remember. He got armed robbery charges out the ass.
Are you at this time taking or under the influence of any alcohol, drugs, or medicine?
No.
And how far did you go in school?
12th grade high school diploma.
Are you able to read, write, and understand the English language?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you were in this indictment charged with...
Say yes, slime?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you were in this indictment charged with count 1, conspiracy to violate the Racketeers, Influence, and Corrupt Organizations Act?
His lawyers are a father and son duo, by the way, if you didn't realize by the beards.
Which carried a sentence of 5 to 20 years?
Yes.
Count 3, you were initially charged with armed robbery, which carried a sentence of 10 to 20 years or life.
Yes.
4 and 5 of this indictment, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, which each carried a sentence of 1 to 20 years.
Yes.
You were charged with count 6 and count 7 in this indictment, which you charged with possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony.
Yes.
And that carried a sentence of 5 years to serve consecutive to any other count in the indictment.
Yes.
You were also charged with armed robbery in counts 14 and 15.
Yes.
Also charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon for count 16 and 17.
Yes.
You were charged with hijacking a motor vehicle in the first degree.
Yes.
You were initially charged with possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony.
Yes.
Counts 19 and 20. You were charged with 4 counts of participation in criminal street gang activity, which were counts 21, 22, 23, and 46.
Yes.
And you were charged with possession of a weapon by an incarcerated individual, which was count 44, and possession of a telecommunication device by an incarcerated individual, which was count 45. You understand that those were your initial charges in this indictment?
Yes.
Do you understand that you have the right to plead either guilty or not guilty to these charges?
Yes.
And if you plead not guilty or remain silent, you may receive a jury trial.
Yes.
Have you had an opportunity to go over this waiver of rights form with your attorney?
Yes, ma'am.
And is this your signature on this document on page 4 of this document?
Yes.
Have you had enough time to speak with your attorneys, Carrington Matthews Sr. and Carrington Matthews Jr., about all the facts and circumstances known to you regarding the charge in this indictment, including any potential defenses?
Yes.
Do you need any more time to discuss this matter with your attorney?
Nope.
Are you satisfied with their counsel and representation?
Yes, ma'am.
Have your attorneys advised you of the minimum and maximum sentence for each charge that you are pleading to?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that this is a negotiated plea of guilty, which means that the state will recommend to the court the following sentence?
Yes.
This is him saving his life here, too, because if he was found guilty, he was going to be serving life, so.
As to count 1, which is conspiracy to violate the Racketeer, Influence, and Corrupt Organizations Act, the state's recommendation is 20 years to serve 9 years in custody, the balance of 11 years on probation.
So 9 years. All right. So that's not bad. I would imagine the other one's going to be concurrent to those 9 years.
Count 3, armed robbery. Based on the negotiations, the state will reduce the armed robbery to robbery and offer a sentence of 20 years to serve 9 years in custody, concurrent with count 1, the balance of 11 years on probation. As to count 4, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, the state will recommend 20 years to serve 9 years in custody, concurrent with counts 1 and count 3, balance of 11 years on probation. As to count 5, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, the state agrees to null pros or dismiss that count. As to count 6, possession of a firearm or the commission of a felony.
The state dismissing charges is so embarrassing. Like, think about that. They just had these guys in jail for 2 years, and let's just dismiss these. He's gonna plead guilty to RICO. We got him.
Recommendation is 5 years to serve, consecutive to counts 1, 3, 4, 14, 15, and 44 to be suspended. As to count 7, possession of firearms or the commission of a felony, the state will null pros or dismiss that count. As to count 14, which is armed robbery, will reduce that to robbery, 20 years to serve 9 years in custody, concurrent with counts 1, 3, and 4, balance of 11 years on probation. Count 15, armed robbery, reduced to robbery, 20 years to serve 9 years in custody, concurrent with counts 1, 3, 4, and 14, balance of 11 years on probation. Count 16 will be null pros or dismissed. Count 17, that count will merge with count 15. Count 18 will be null pros or dismissed by the state. Count 19, possession of firearms or the commission of a felony, will be 5 years to serve, consecutive to counts 1, 3, 4, 14, 15, 17, and 44, but concurrent with count 6, and that will be suspended. Count 20 will be null pros or dismissed by the state. Count 21 will be 5 years to serve, concurrent with counts 1, 3, 4, 14, 15, 16, 17, 19, and 44. Count 22 will be null pros or dismissed by the state, as well as count 23 will be null pros or dismissed by the state. Count 44, possession of a weapon by an incarcerated individual, will be 5 years to serve, concurrent with counts 1, 3, 4, 14, 15, and 17. And counts 45 and 46 will be null pros or dismissed by the state. Do you understand that that's the state's recommendation?
Yes.
The total sentence is 25 years to serve 9 years in custody, with a balance of 14 years. 9 of those 14 years will be served on probation, and 5 years will be suspended. Do you understand that?
Yes.
9 years it's 11 years probation. She was just wrong there. The 25 years, 11 years on probation, 9 serving, and 5 years suspended.
You understand the court does not have to accept that recommendation.
Yes.
And the court can sentence you to the maximum of each charge and can run those charges consecutively, one after the other.
Yes.
Imagine Judge Whitaker's like, yeah, no, you're getting 50 years.
Without being subject to revocation for the balance of the sentence.
Yes.
And do you understand that there were several special conditions of probation that you must adhere to, which are contained within this documentation?
Yes.
And have you had an opportunity to go over each of these special conditions with your attorneys?
Yes, ma'am.
That you are not allowed to possess or use a firearm while on probation.
Yes.
You understand that by pleading guilty, you're giving up the following rights. And after each right, I'll ask you to respond. The right to trial by jury.
Yes.
The right to remain silent and not incriminate yourself.
Yes.
The right to confront witnesses against you.
Yes.
The right to assistive counsel hired by you or to court-appointed counsel if you cannot afford an attorney at the trial of your case.
Yes.
With respect to indictment 22 SC 183-572, how do you plead to the charges in that indictment?
I plead guilty.
Is this guilty plea freely and voluntarily given with a full knowledge of charge against you?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you may have only a limited right to appeal this guilty plea conviction?
Yes.
Your Honor, if this case were to go to trial, the state would expect, or if we were to continue with trial, the state would expect to show, or evidence has shown and will show, that Mr. Huey conspired with others to participate in YSL through a pattern of racketeering activity, and multiple defendants, as well as unindicted co-conspirators, have committed overt acts to further this conspiracy.
I know the judge gonna be like, holy shit, we're only giving this guy 9 years when he was facing, how much was he facing, bro? Like, this is insane. This is unheard of. I hope you guys know that. This doesn't happen. So shout out Thugger Daily for all this information, of course. Huey went from facing 3 life sentences plus 100 years to 9 years plus, and he has 4 years credit time served. This shit doesn't happen. The state's so desperate they fucked up their case.
Sales, aggravated assault, and murder. Also, it includes posting on social media, asserting the violent nature of and the dominance of Young Slime Life, aka YSL. Specifically, Mr. Huey himself participated in 2 robberies. He posted on social media, and he engaged in text messages with his fellow co-conspirators. On April 26, 2019, Mr. Huey, along with another individual, armed robber Mr. Dewan Maynard, at an apartment complex located on Masargo Drive in the Buckhead neighborhood in Atlanta, Georgia, Fulton County. He robbed Mr. Maynard at gunpoint and pistol with him. Mr. Huey was wearing a very distinctive yellow jacket. He stole a ring, a necklace, a luxury wallet, and other items. He then fled the scene in a black Mustang. Portion of this robbery, Your Honor, were caught on surveillance video. After the robbery, Mr. Huey was seen on his social media account with the ring and necklace, very identical to the items that were stolen from Mr. Maynard. Additionally, on Instagram, and on social media, there were several pictures of Mr. Huey photographed next to a black Mustang. There were several pictures. Lastly, there were pictures of Mr. Huey on his social media wearing the same distinctive yellow jacket that was seen on the surveillance video. Based on that evidence, Your Honor, arrest warrants were issued for Mr. Huey.
Why are you gonna pistol whip someone and rob them with the same yellow jacket and wear it around?
Armed robbery, Your Honor. On October 1st, 2020, Mr. Huey went to the apartments located at 250 Fulton Street, Atlanta, Georgia, Fulton County, to meet with Mr. Gary Holloman. Gary Holloman, who is now deceased, told law enforcement officers on the night that he was robbed that Mr. Huey, who he knew, asked to meet with him so that Mr. Holloman could give Mr. Huey money to put on another co-conspirator to Aquarius Mender's books or commissary at the Fulton County Jail. Aquarius Mender, who is a co-defendant and co-conspirator, is the nephew of Gary Holloman. Mr. Mender and Mr. Huey were friends, or are friends. Mr. Holloman agreed to meet with Mr. Huey at the location. While at the location, Mr. Huey, along with another individual, approached Mr. Holloman. One person had an assault rifle. They took from Mr. Holloman his car and his money. They also robbed another young lady by the name of Louisa Coppage. Mr. Huey and the other unidentified individual fled the scene and left. Mr. Holloman immediately called the police. When police arrived, Mr. Holloman was able to use another cell phone to track his phone. He was able to track that phone going in the direction of I-75 South, and ultimately that phone was located on Oak Drive, which is in the Cleveland Avenue area, which is the area or territory for Young Slime Life. Also, Mr. Holloman was able to show police officers the social media pages of Mr. Huey to identify him. Initially, the police marked this case as an information, and the case was not initially investigated. However, about 1 month later, Mr. Holloman went to the police headquarters, spoke with investigators. He was able to pick Mr. Huey out of the photographic lineup. Subsequently, investigator Marissa Barito, who was formerly with the Fulton County District Attorney's Office, found a jail call with Aquarius Mender, Mr. Mender's mother, as well as Gary Holloman discussing the robbery and Mr. Holloman discussing what occurred to him. Arrest warrants were taken out for Mr. Huey. He was initially arrested in November of 2020. During that arrest, and pursuant to a search warrant, his home was searched. In that search, they found 2 rifle handguns. Also, they found items belonging to an individual by the name of Chandler Durham. During that search warrant, they seized Mr. Huey's phones, and pursuant to a search warrant, did a search of those phones. Upon seeing the items from Chandler Durham, investigator Barito checked the Atlanta Police Department's database to find that there were any police reports associated with the Chandler Durham. She found a police report from March 12, 2020. In that report, Chandler Durham reported that while he was working at a music studio, his car and additional items to include a luxury bag were stolen. After finding the report, investigator Barito went through the contents of Mr. Huey's phone, and she saw a few text messages and notes. She saw a text conversation on March 12, 2020 between Jeffrey Williams and Mr. Huey. Jeffrey Williams told Mr. Huey that they needed to take that shit back. Mr. Huey denied involvement in taking the items and blamed it on another person. Mr. Williams then told Mr. Huey in his text message, if he doesn't take it back, he's going to die. Also found in Huey's cell phone were 2 incidents in which Mr. Huey and Mr. Williams were in conversation with each other regarding rival gang member Rashawn Bennett, aka YSL. On January 19, 2020, Mr. Williams sent a flyer to Huey with the performance location of YSL. The text message read, handle that tonight, slat. Then Huey responded, slat.
Thug texted him a location of Lucci and said, handle that tonight, slat? What?
Understand slat means slime love all the time. Then on September 2nd, 2020, Mr. Huey sent a flyer to Mr. Williams with another performance location of Mr. Rashawn Bennett. Mr. Williams texted, slat, handle, and stay very low. Huey's response was slat, and for sure, I've been out the way. And appreciate you for everything, my brother. Never about money with me. I'm built on loyalty. Williams' response was slat, handle that, I got you. In 2021, we were able to recover another phone from Mr. Huey after he was subsequently arrested on grand jury warrants. When we did a search warrant of that phone, there was additional communication between Mr. Williams and Mr. Huey. Mr. Huey told Mr. Williams on November 14, 2021, you know I'm ready to handle the business and you'll sit down if I got to about any one of y'all or my mama. This text message followed information that was provided to investigator Barito by Kenneth Copeland. Kenneth Copeland, during an October 2021 interview, advised investigator Barito that he was aware of a potential plot to harm another rival gang member, Kelvin Watts, also known as Shell Kel, at a venue, Diamonds of the Lane on Northside Drive. Mr. Coleman advised that he was aware that Huey was to participate in this plot to harm Watts, and he attempted to tell Huey not to participate. Lastly, Your Honor, on February 18, 2022, while housed at the Fulton County Jail, along with Aquarius Mender, they were both housed in the same cell. There was a search of that dorm specifically, and inside of the cell, there was a shank and an illegal cell phone inside of their cell that they shared. And based on what we know from other evidence that we have, that cell phone was used to communicate with other YSL members. Your Honor, this is the evidence come out had we continued with trial. Given where we are, Your Honor, and the charges, we made a decision to resolve this case with Mr. Huey for the offer that was relayed earlier, Your Honor.
Was on demon time. Only has to serve 9 years.
I'd like to begin by expressing to the court that we emphatically and categorically deny all of the recitation that's been presented by the court with respect to some of these allegations that's been laid out by the state. However, we do recognize that there are enough factual allegations in the recitation to support each and every count to which Mr. Huey is pleading this afternoon. So we do stipulate that there is enough to move forward with this plea. For those reasons, Your Honor, we are standing before this court to talk to this court about the acceptance of responsibility with respect to Mr. Marquavius Huey. Your Honor, Mr. Marquavius Huey was born in Atlanta, Georgia. He lived in the Jonesboro South community, a neighborhood project in Atlanta community. He grew up there. He's seen a lot of things in his short 28-year life. His father was murdered in 2010, and he's been without a father for a number of years. He's been raised by his mother as a single parent. He has a number of siblings. There have been times when Mr. Huey and his mother and his family have been homeless and have lived out of a car. So he's had a very, very hard life as it relates to his upbringing. Notwithstanding that, Your Honor, he did manage to graduate from high school. Mr. Huey, Your Honor, now has 2 children. He's 28 years old. He has 2 children. He has a 5-year-old son, Your Honor. He has a 2-year-old little daughter that was born in July of 2022. He has never met or seen his daughter in person until today, as she's here in this courtroom.
What? Holy shit.
He recognizes that choices puts him before this court in this case. Your Honor, we are asking this court to take into consideration that he has no prior felony convictions. I've had a very long time to get to know Mr. Huey because I've been with Mr. Huey on a regular, daily basis during the week since January of 2023. I've got a chance to know him. I've got a chance to work with him on his case regularly. He wants to, when he gets out of custody, Your Honor, he wants to do a number of things, 2 in particular. He wants to start and become affiliated with a nonprofit organization where he can be able to talk to young children, teenagers, because he was a teenager when he lost his father. Things begin to take a turn for Mr. Huey. He wants to be able to tell teenagers, young boys, young black boys, he wants to be able to say to them, don't do what I did. You have another way in which you can go. And he wants to be able to share his experiences in that way. I have linked Mr. Huey up with an organization called Young Generation Movement. And I've known that nonprofit organization and the founder of that organization for a long period of time. He's also present in this courtroom. And I've linked Mr. Huey up with them so that when Mr. Huey gets out of custody, he will be able to have an organization that can mentor him, that he can align himself with, where he can begin to engage himself with anti-violence nonprofit conduct and mentoring other young people. He also, in terms of being able to earn an income, because he is now, Your Honor, if this court accepts this plea, Mr. Huey will now, for the first time, be a convicted felon. He is not first offender eligible. He wants to get his commercial driver's license, Your Honor, and he wants to get a trucking company and be able to earn a living for himself because he recognizes that it's going to be a challenge for him to be able to go out and apply for jobs and be able to get income by getting an employer to hire him, focus and target himself to be able to fend for himself so that he can take care of his young children.
The daughter situation is so sad. He's never met his daughter. They were all arrested around May of 2022.
Here before this court because it's an acceptance of responsibility. We recognize that this has been a very long, enduring trial. We have come to a point where we have painstakingly negotiated with the state of Georgia, and we've come up with a negotiated resolution we believe is one that is fair. We believe that is sufficient to recognize the seriousness of the charges that are before the court, and we believe it's one that will cause Mr. Huey to be able to see the light of day in a reasonable period of time. Mr. Huey has been in custody. I'd like to enter into the record, Your Honor, as Defendant's Exhibit 1 for sentencing purposes, a proof of incarceration from the Fulton County Sheriff's Office. Mr. Huey, through the computations of the various times when he was arrested on these charges and released, and from the time that he's currently been in custody to the present, he has approximately 4 years under his belt against that 9-year sentence, and that 9-year sentence is parolable. So we're going to enter that as an exhibit before the court.
All right, that'll be Defendant's Exhibit 1 to this plea hearing, and as you know, and as I'm sure you have shared with Mr. Huey, it's ultimately the Department of Corrections that calculates the time served portion of the sentence, so it'll ultimately be up to them, but I will include that as a part of my sentencing sheet as well.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure and honor to represent Mr. Marquavius Huey along with my son, Attorney Carlton Matthews Jr., who also would like to address the court at this time, Your Honor. So we're asking this court to accept the negotiation that has been represented to the court and Mr. C.J. Matthews.
Yes, good afternoon to this honorable court.
Good afternoon, Mr. Matthews.
Gracious with this opportunity to represent and serve Mr. Huey. Mr. Huey is an honorable young man. Mr. Huey does not allow his mistakes to define him, but he is remorseful, Your Honor. He has learned, grown, and became a better man during this trial. Mr. Huey will have a release date, Your Honor. And I'm confident that he'll be a working class citizen in society when he is released. We thank this honorable court and we respectfully ask this court to accept this plea on today.
Mr. Matthews Sr. and Mr. Matthews Jr. have, I know that they have been working with you and negotiating with the state for over, I'm sure, the entire course of this trial and proceeding, but very, very hard over the last week and a couple of days to get where we are right now. And I know that you know that given the severity and the number of charges that you were facing, had you been convicted of all of those charges at trial, you were looking at the possibility of 3 consecutive life sentences, plus I think about 100 years after that. So the fact that the state is recommending jointly with your attorneys that your total sentence be 25 years with 9 of those to serve is, it's frankly remarkable.
Because they know they fucked up, and this is an embarrassment for the state. Dismissing charges, saving face, that's all they're doing here.
And something that you should not take for granted or take lightly at all. These are very serious charges. Hear what both Mr. Matthews have said about the challenges facing you in your life, and I am sorry for the loss of your father. One would hope that to have anybody that they love taken from them in a violent way like murder might have an impact upon their lives that would lead them in the right direction, but it's not particularly surprising that sometimes that's not what happens and it goes in a worse direction instead. I hope that with your age and with having really been faced with the distinct possibility of spending the entirety of the rest of your life in prison, the fact that you are getting this opportunity is not going to be wasted. I hope that you appreciate what the Matthews have done to go out of their way to line up somebody to be looking out for you when you are released from prison. Is this your decision to enter this guilty plea? Because no matter what your attorney's advice is, it's ultimately up to you whether to plead guilty or continue with the trial. So is this what you want to do?
Yes, ma'am.
Very clear that this plea is to your benefit, considering the potential downside of moving forward with the continued trial. I find there to be a factual basis to this plea. I appreciate the fact that y'all have stipulated that there is a factual basis, and I find the plea to be freely, knowingly, intelligently, and voluntarily entered with an understanding of the consequences, and I will accept it as such. And I will sentence in accord with the negotiated recommendation with a total sentence of 25 years to serve 9 in custody, balance of 14 years after that, 9 of those on probation and 5 suspended. And I'm going to impose the special conditions that you have already acknowledged.
I could have swore it was 11 years on probation, but I don't know what's going on here.
And acknowledge that you would abide by. And, somebody with a high school diploma, which is more than a whole lot of people ever achieve. So you've already achieved and proven that you can achieve good things. And who is only 28 years old, and who can really look down and already see the light of day for a release date. You need to make sure that during your time incarcerated that any other kind of thing that you have been, that you actually are pleading guilty to at least some of by having contraband or in any other way getting in trouble, because that's not going to bode well. I am going to recommend a transition program for you. I know that there's a lot of different job training available in our correction system, so I hope that you take advantage of that. Whether it's a commercial driver's license or whether you find something else that you want to do while you're in there, be making good use of your time while you're in there and furthering yourself. And you have had a fine example next to you for the past 2 years of what somebody can do with their lives, and be the father that you need to be and that you ought to be to your very young children. They're still going to be very young when you get out. And please make sure that you abide by all your probationary conditions, because if you don't, then you're going to be back to see me. And because I recognize how much of a break you're getting right now, probably not going to be as lenient if you come back before me again, because you are getting a huge opportunity to turn your life around. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So that's the sentence of the court. And I want to wish you good luck and good fortune. You can get through the next few years, and then you can have the rest of your life to do good work with.
Can you address the court?
Yes. I should have asked that. I'm sorry.
What? He's going to read something? No one else did this.
I want to thank the court, thank God. And, I want to apologize to my kids, my family, and everybody who supported me in this stressful process. I plan to do my time, come back, be a better man.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. All right. Let's take a recess.
Recess? So the recess never actually happened. It was the end of court for the day. There's rumors that Thug is close to a plea deal, but nothing's confirmed. Yak obviously denied a plea deal, and apparently Shannon did as well. So it's all up to Thug now. Do you see Thug accepting anything that's not time served and release? I don't. The state said he was King Slime. They're not gonna let Thug out easy. So I don't know, man. I feel like Thug is gonna stay in this trial, sadly. Hit subscribe to the membership. Love you guys. Peace out.